Hello! So I am almost done with all of my cozy spooky season reads, so I am ready to start my creepy spooky season reads. So the first book that I have started is Hide by Kiersten White. I saw Jessie from Bow Ties and Books talk about this in a video and it sounded super interesting, so I am very excited to read it. I am listening to it and so far so good. I do also have two books that I got at the library the other day. Reluctant Immortals by Gwendolyn Kiste. This is a horror novel that talks about the survivors of Dracula and Mr. Rochester. Yeah, it sounds super interesting. I love the premise. I haven't seen anybody talk about this. It is blurbed by Stephen Graham Jones, who is another author that I would like to get to in this vlog. I've never read any of his books, so I would like to read one of them for this video. Okay, sorry for the brightness. So I'm halfway through Hide, which is a supernatural thriller, and it's kind of a battle royale kind of a setup, and I really like those, so it's working well for me. Something that I think is so funny that I notice so often in these types of elimination game kind of plots is the amount of people who are always like thinking that they can just opt out of it. And like, I know that I'm at an unfair advantage because I'm obviously reading a book about it, so I know that it's not going to go well for them, but the amount of people who have had really good warning signs to indicate to them that everything is not what it seems, that they have been lied to or whatever, who then still think that they can just be like, no, I want to go home, this isn't fun anymore, and like think that that's gonna go well. I notice this in so many of these types of stories, and I'm just like, I feel like once you get that bad feeling, you just run away. Like, you don't say, oh, I don't want to play anymore, you know? It's just very funny to me. But anyway, I'm really enjoying that one. I think I am going to start Reluctant Immortals briefly here at the park, and yeah. Hello. We are chilling. It's very cold. Okay, so I don't think that I've updated you since I finished Hide. I really enjoyed Hide. I thought that it was very good. I know that Jessie was reading it specifically because people didn't like it, and I thought that it was great. They are kind of called to this massive game of hide and seek where they can win $50,000, and our main character is currently unhoused and doesn't really have any alternatives. She enters this game, and then you also hear kind of the stories. We're following one main character the whole time, but you kind of hear the stories of multiple other people and how they got brought into this and the reasons, understandable and not, of why they are there. Each character was completely different, but I felt like she did all of them pretty well. I thought the pacing was very good. There were a few writing awkward moments, but very few. Like, I thought it was a very enjoyable read. I am really struggling to listen to audiobooks right now, and I tore through this one. I listened to in like 2 days. I really liked it. I don't think it was like a life-changing thing, but honestly, I mean, for a thriller, it actually had some pretty solid themes like exploitation and class issues, race issues. Honestly, solid recommend from me. Unfortunately, our next read was not so successful. So this is Reluctant Immortals by Gwendolyn Kiste. I didn't like this book. I just finished it, and so I thought that this was just so promising. So I absolutely love the premise. You're following Lucy, the bride of Dracula, and Bertha Mason, who goes by B in this book, who is the first wife of Mr. Rochester in the Jane Eyre book. Sorry if that's spoilers to anybody who's never read Jane Eyre. I've never read Dracula, but I have read Jane Eyre multiple times. Really, really like Jane Eyre, but I also like Jane Eyre retellings. Like, I love Wide Sargasso Sea. I know that some people who like Jane Eyre don't want to read this or don't like this or whatever. If you're not familiar, Wide Sargasso Sea is a kind of prequel to Jane Eyre that tells the story of Bertha or Antoinette before she, ends up where she is in the Jane Eyre book. So, I was fully on board for Jane Eyre retelling, the vibes of Jane Eyre to be completely destroyed, because to me, you can interpret a lot of different things out of Jane Eyre, and there's no justification in my mind for this element of Jane Eyre, and so I don't care really what someone does with that in a retelling. So anyway, I was fully on board for this, and to me, this book just didn't know what it wanted to do. In my mind, there were two options for the story. There was either kind of a dark humor, absurd, like spooky, but kind of a wild ride version, or there was a dark, sad, beautiful, literary, melancholy story to be told sort of along the lines of this. And I feel like she kind of tried to do both of them. Like, you can tell that some of it is supposed to be kind of funny in a way, like not hilarious, but there are some like kind of darkly comical moments. But she's also really, really trying to do something with trauma here. And I think it was really, really ineffective. I am going to talk about some of the choices that were made. I'm not going to fully spoil the story or anything, but you can check the chapters if you want to skip. Essentially, when we first arrive in the story, Lucy and Bee have been living together for like decades at this point, and their lives are still completely absorbed by the men that like ruined their lives. Dracula and Rochester are both also immortal in this story, but they've been kind of away or held back in some way for a long time now. So hypothetically, the women could have been doing whatever they wanted, and based on the description of this book, that is what I expected. I expected to come across them living their best undead lives. Like, I thought that this was going to be like, they have their own things going on, their own lives, and the men come back, and then they have to like vanquish them to get back to their own lives. Like, I was fully prepared and so ready for Lucy the vampire to be like an overnight gas station attendant or something and have all these weird encounters and stuff, and Bee could be like a like goth clothing store attendant or something, like just wonderful and weird. That is what I was expecting, but no, their lives are so depressing and so still consumed by these men. And I think that she was trying to say something about trauma and about how that stays with you until you deal with it and stuff. But all of the trauma that she talked about was like the most basic ass surface level shit that you've ever heard in your life. Like, Bertha can't be, or Bee can't be confined to small spaces or be around fire. And it was just like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It just, nothing new was being said here. And there was also just like this, kind of girl power theme throughout that was just done in kind of a cringy way. Like, there were a lot of things said in the narrator's voice that didn't feel like a narrator. They felt like a little bit of a preachy thing, like, this is what men like this do, they do blah blah blah. I don't know. And maybe this is something where if I'd read this at like 19 or something, 17, I might have thought this was like super impactful. I don't know. To me, there was so much potential. And this also did something that I've always thought that I wanted to read a Jane Eyre retelling that did this thing, and it did it, and it still sucked. Very, very disappointing. It wasn't a bad read. Like, I did finish it, which means that I didn't hate it, because I will DNF for sure. But I kept reading more because of the potential and what I wanted it to be than for anything that it actually was. Sadly, because again, I mean, this cover, the premise, just, there was so much to be hoped for from this, and it wasn't there. I was going to go to the library today after work to possibly pick up another book or see what they had going on, maybe some graphic novels or something, but it was raining and it's very, very cold. So I didn't want to walk to the library today, so maybe we will be able to do that tomorrow. Hello, good morning. So, I have some updates. So I read Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones, and I have very mixed feelings about this because I really liked the writing, I liked the style and everything. It is kind of a short novella. Sorry, my cat has the zoomies, if you can hear her. It is told through a first-person narrator who is a teenage boy, and he very much like rambles and such like a teenage boy, but it's very clever. There were a lot of very like funny moments, smart little quips and bizarre asides that he includes. So essentially the narrator is in this group of like 4 or 5 friends. They decide to play a prank on one of their friends by dressing up a mannequin and bringing it to her work. She works at a movie theater, and essentially it like majorly backfires and things go downhill from there. I have no problems with that premise, creepy mannequins, sure. It was kind of once the plot actually started to develop that I didn't like it anymore. And yeah, I can't really say why I didn't like it because that like fully spoils the book. So I'm kind of limited in what I can say, but basically I just think that I will definitely read more from Stephen Graham Jones because I liked everything about this except for what actually happens in the book, which is like a big thing, but I definitely want to read a different one of his books next month, and hopefully I will feel quite differently about it. I am 234 pages into Uzumaki. I knew that this was going to be scary because everybody talks about how terrifying it is, but I didn't really fully understand how it was going to be terrifying. I think I thought that it was going to be psychologically terrifying, and like it is, but this is also a very physical book. Like there's a lot of physical horror, like body horror and bizarre things that are drawn relatively graphically in this. And I like it. Like, I'm not saying I don't like it, but I'm just saying, like, it is horror in, like, a very literal sense, I think, like, very horrific. I am liking it. I tend to read about 2 chapters at a time because it is rather disturbing. Incredibly well done. The only thing, I do have a very severe phobia of eyes and eye injuries, so because there is so much body horror in this, sometimes I have to, like, not look at certain illustrations in this. But this is so impressive and very, very unnerving and disturbing. So far so good, if you can call it that. I have also started Queen of the Cicadas by Violet Castro. This one is really, really good so far. So this is set in Texas. You are following multiple timelines. So you have the modern timeline of this early 40s, I believe, woman who has come back to kind of the area around her hometown for a wedding. She is kind of remembering her childhood where they were told this story or legend of something that happened in the 50s, I believe. And then you're also following what happened in the 50s. So in the 50s, there is a farm worker who moved to the United States from Mexico to earn money, and she is in an extremely abusive situation, very exploitative. She ends up being the victim of a hate crime. That's not like a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. The kind of legend of the Queen of the Cicadas kind of comes into play there, and that's about where I am in the book. I am 50 pages in. This has been very, very interesting, very engrossing, obviously quite difficult to read in some parts given the subject matter, but it has also been really interesting to hear other urban legends or mythology of the area of like southern Texas, Mexico. There were several other kind of Bloody Mary-esque figures that I had never heard of, not being, from that area or from that culture. And so, they would just be mentioned in passing and I would be like Googling what. Really, really enjoying this one so far. And I believe those are the updates that I have for now, so. Hello. Okay, so just a quick update. So I am almost halfway through Uzumaki. I am at about 300 pages, and I'm considering DNFing this. It's good, it's very, very impressive, but every chapter just feels like it exists to, scare you, creep you out and everything, and obviously, like, it's a horror manga, like, that maybe should have been obvious, but I don't care about the story. And so, like, at some point, it just, I don't care anymore. This is a long book, and obviously it reads faster than a normal book. I don't know. I asked on my Instagram whether I should keep going if I am disappointed by the overarching story. I'm getting close to being done with The Queen of the Cicadas, and I really, really like this. There are things that I would change about it, which I will discuss, when I'm done, so that I will have my fully formed thoughts on it, hopefully, but this one's going really well. It is a beautiful day outside. It's been very, very cold here for a while now, and now it's like 75 degrees and sunny again. So I'm going to pack up and go get some snacks and go to the park. So I'm very excited. Hello. So I finished The Queen of the Cicadas, and I really, really liked this book. It was not like a perfect book to me. There were definitely aspects of it that I wish had been slightly different. So I think I discussed that there's multiple timelines going on, and I was very, very interested in the timeline that happened in the 50s. And I also think that the kind of Aztec pre-conquest or colonization timeline more could have been done with that. It kind of came and went a little bit. Well, they all did. That's kind of the definition of multiple timelines. But anyway, the modern timeline was, I think, the one that the most time was dedicated to, and it was the timeline that I cared the least about. So I feel like some of this could have been cut out because it did at times feel a little bit drawn out. And it's not a very long book. It's only like 200 pages, but there are kind of a lot of words for, the length that it is, but I just felt like it could have been a shorter, slightly more impactful book if some of that had been taken out. But again, overall, I want to emphasize that I really, really enjoyed this. It was very unique. I thought that the emphasis on the different values from the Aztec deities versus, kind of Christian values. I thought that juxtaposition was very interesting. Overall, really interesting and engaging story with a lot of kind of discussion and such that I really haven't seen before. A recommend from me, but again, just be aware that there is a lot of very difficult subject matter, a lot of racism and sexism and hate that is presented, but it is avenged, if that makes it more able to be read. I had forgot to bring it over. The last book that I think that I will get to is Slur by Tim McGregor. This is by Tenebris Press. in the About page, was conceived in the plague year 2020 and unleashed howling and feral in spring 2021 to deliver the finest in transgressive, progressive horror from diverse and unsung voices around the world. We welcome the esoteric, the unorthodox, the finest in new weird horror. So, that sounds promising to me, so I am excited about this. Hello! So, I have finished Slur by mcgregor. It's very, very short. It's only like 116 pages. So, this was a fine read. It does seem like it's a very, very small press. I really had no issues necessarily with the writing. I thought that it was pretty well executed. It was a very interesting little story, but ultimately this is not going to be memorable for me whatsoever. So this is kind of a bit of a folk story. It's a little seaside town. That sounds very picturesque, but it is absolutely not. It is kind of a dark, really, really super depressing, kind of impoverished town. Obviously fantasy, but it's kind of an olden times kind of setup. So we're following the like parson's son or whatever, the reverend's son. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time explaining this plot. Basically, a mermaid shows up to town and it goes very badly for everyone involved. It was a pretty straightforward plot arc from there. Obviously, in a 100-page book, I can't really talk very much about the plot without giving it away entirely, but it was an okay premise. Again, this was just very forgettable. If you, for any reason, really like mermaid stories and kind of like dark mermaid stories, then I would check this out. Otherwise, I think it's a take it or leave it. I'm not, upset that I spent the time reading it or anything, but it was fine. So, to wrap things up for the vlog, I am listening to Frankenstein, attempting to. Again, I am not doing a good job listening to audiobooks right now, so I don't know whether that will happen or not, or if I will have to give up on the audiobook and eventually try to read it physically. But we're going to give it a shot. But before I talk about favorites and least favorites, I do just want to talk about a few things that I've been watching for the spooky season. So I did, of course, have to watch my favorite spooky season movie, my Halloween movie. I know a lot of people's Halloween movie is Hocus Pocus. Mine is The Addams Family, so I had to watch that, of course, and I will be watching Addams Family Values probably this weekend. I just absolutely love The Addams Family so much. It makes me so happy. I watch it any time of the year, but, particularly this time of year. I also watched the relatively short semi-horror movie that is on Disney Plus. Oh, Werewolf by Night. It is in the Marvel universe, but it is really not very Marvel-y at all. It is kind of modeled off of a noir type film, so it is in black and white, which is very, very cool. I really liked it. It's only about an hour long, which is the length, honestly, that I think most movies should be. And yeah, I thought that it was really good. I also have been watching the latest seasons of two shows that I do really like that are kind of in the suspense or thriller or weird genres, one of which is Evil. This is a very, very interesting show. So you are following three people who are part of a team that goes in and investigates potential paranormal things. This is purely fictional. This is not like a reality TV or like a Mythbusters or anything like that. But one of them is a priest, one of them is a psychologist, and the other is a scientist, technical guy. And so they are kind of approaching these instances of potential paranormal activity from those three perspectives. So I find it very, very interesting. I think if you like the show Supernatural, you would really like it. It also has a bit of a crime show feel, it kind of has the investigative element as well. So anyway, I really enjoy it. And the other one is The Sinner, and this is a very, very psychological thing. Each season of The Sinner is quite different. You are following a consistent character throughout, but they are different cases that he is involved in. So there's a kind of cult-esque one. There are some kind of inexplicably motivated crimes, that sort of thing. And so I'm watching the most recent season of that. It's a very unsettling show. It's not exactly scary, but it is very suspenseful in like a, yeah, just an unsettling way. So, favorites of the video. One of them would definitely be Hyde, which I really, really enjoyed and thought was a very, very well executed supernatural thriller. Greatly enjoyed that one. I also really, really liked The Queen of the Cicadas, Myth, Revenge, What More Could You Want? I don't think I updated, but I did end up DNFing this one. Again, not because I didn't like it, but just because I was tired of picking it up, honestly. Just every time I picked it up, I was just like, okay, you know, I really, really appreciated it for what it was doing, and I could potentially at some point finish it. Like, I could see myself getting it out from the library again at some point and reading the rest of it. And this is a compilation of, I believe, originally 3 volumes. So I think actually if I had read them in 3 volumes, I probably would have loved this. But reading it all in one go, it just felt like a lot of the same thing. I felt very, very neutral about lore. Didn't feel great about either of these. I did like Reluctant Immortals better than Night of the Mannequins. I think that people could really love this. I personally did not. I just felt like it was so much wasted potential, and so even the parts of it that I did like just didn't wow me. Yeah. And then similar with Night of the Mannequins, great potential. I just really didn't like the plot. So I think that is all of the relevant updates that I have, and so I will see you in the next video, which should be my November TBR.